and welcome to part 2 of Week 6 lecture, Revolution and Enlightenment. Looking at Ben Franklin, some things to keep in mind with Franklin. Franklin really is one of the sort of self-made men of America. He rises from the middle class to make himself upper class. He rises from the middle class with a basic education to become a scientist, to become a naturalist, to become a diplomat and politician, something that really would never happen in Europe. Like Don King said, only in America. Ben Franklin is a true American. His story would really only happen in America. And he is the originator of a lot of things that really are truly American. He establishes, for instance, the first public library because he wants to have access to more books. And so he basically creates a subscription service. And he establishes it and allows people to basically pool their resources to purchase books. And then they borrow books. And he comes up with a scheme to do that, and you'll read a little bit about that in his biography. So it's a combination of self-education and capitalism and sort of community efforts. Another thing that's important about Franklin, I think, to point out is his secularism. He is very clear to point out that he doesn't have any use for religion if it doesn't have anything to teach him. He points out that he doesn't attend church, and he tells a story of going to a church 5 times in a row and refusing to go again because he doesn't learn anything from it, because the preacher doesn't teach anything other than dogma. He is very interested in becoming more disciplined and becoming a better person with better character, and he believes that if church doesn't have anything to teach him about character, then he doesn't want to go to church. He's not interested in dogma. He's not interested in doctrine. He's interested in bettering himself. And so you'll notice in the autobiography also he includes the specific list of virtues that he is trying to attain. And he is very systematic about that. He attempts to be very organized in that. And that's something else. He applies a method, much the way that the Puritans, applied method to their self-improvement. They kept diaries. They kept journals. They attempted to analyze themselves. And so in a way, he's very similar to them in his self-analysis. But he's doing it from a very secular standpoint. Thomas Paine is a very interesting guy who comes along at just the right time. If there was ever anyone who came on the scene at exactly the right time, it was Thomas Paine. Before Thomas Paine, before Common Sense, the colonies were really on the precipice. In 1774, the First Continental Congress had met. They were upset, of course, against the Intolerable Acts. For those of you who remember your American history, they had declared them unconstitutional, but they hadn't really done anything as a group. I mean, there were talks of declaring independence, there were talks of revolution, but there wasn't anything done. Then along comes Tom Paine and Common Sense, and everyone gets really upset. It's a popular document. People are reading. People are unified under an idea. And then there's the Declaration of Independence, and there's war. So really, Thomas Paine was there to light a match. And who was Thomas Paine? Thomas Paine was an Englishman. He arrives in America, fairly late in the game. He arrives in a lot of ways because the opportunity presents itself. He has been pretty much a failure in England at everything he does. He is, oddly enough, he comes to sort of his radical writings through being a labor organizer as a taxman. He tries to organize the taxmen. He wants the Parliament to pay the taxmen directly as opposed to being paid by the people. And those are his first political writings. He gets fired from his job as a taxman because it's uncovered that he basically didn't do what he said he did. And he had met Franklin when he was in London, lobbying on the part of the taxmen. So he has a letter of introduction from Franklin. And he comes and he gets a job as a writer, and with his radical ideas and his radical leanings and his feelings, ever growing in animosity towards England, towards what he feels to be the unjust government of England. Out comes Common Sense, and it's an amazing piece of political rhetoric. It's fiery, it's angry. It takes the philosophy of John Locke, of Rousseau, and melds it into a political statement that is incredibly powerful. And the language just flows, and it's paragraph after paragraph of fire and brimstone and blood and swords, and it's quotable quote after quotable quote. And I think you'll really enjoy reading it. It's not necessarily something that you can read all the way through and really take in all at once. It's one of those things that you can sort of read a couple of paragraphs and then take a break and read a couple of paragraphs later. It's not necessarily something you can read all at once, and you even necessarily need to read all at once. It's kind of like listening to political radio, like listening to Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck, or even, on the other side, Keith Olbermann or Rachel Maddow. No matter what your political persuasion, there's only so much of it you can take. It's inventive and interesting sometimes, but there's only so much of it you can handle. But read it and keep in mind, all of these sort of philosophical ideas that he's melding into a political tool that is unifying people who have had these ideas, and he's melding, sort of the news and what's going on and philosophical ideas, and putting them, basically lighting the match to the powder keg with this. Finally, what can I say about Thomas Jefferson that hasn't already been said? I think, you probably know a lot about him. The piece that you're looking at is, of course, the Declaration of Independence. The underlined sections are the sections that Congress edited out. The sections that are to the side are the pieces that they put in place. Jefferson gives us a little introduction, sort of explaining why the changes were made, how he feels about some of those changes. It's interesting to read those changes and to think about why they were made, how they were made, how they may have shaped the document. So what should we look at as to the significance of this week's readings? First, I think we should look at America as being created as a land of ideas from the very beginning, from the Puritans and the Pilgrims, even back to the Spanish. We can also think about the revolutionaries' goals, of Jefferson and Franklin and Paine, as an extension of the promises first identified by people like John Smith, William Bradford, John Winthrop. What kind of promises did they see in America that are coming true with the revolutionaries? Thomas Paine talks about America being a place where freedom could find refuge. Is that something that was a promise that was made by Smith and Bradford and Winthrop that is coming true? Finally, what does this mean for literature? To separate yourself from England, from Europe, you would also need to separate yourself from a literary tradition. Can you begin a new literary tradition?